Today we look at 6 Soviet inventions that were ahead of their time. Some of them were only accepted by the world decades later. Some haven't been accepted to this day. But all 6 prove one thing. The engineering school that created the T-34 and launched the first satellite knew how to think generations ahead. The system around it just didn't always know how to listen. The first invention is reactive armor. The Soviet Union invented it in 1949 and abandoned it after a single explosion. Israel used it in 1982 and changed tank warfare forever. In 1949, in Moscow, at the Scientific Research Institute of Steel, academician Bogdan Wojciechowski proposed an idea that sounded like madness at first glance: protecting a tank from a shaped charge using an explosion. The logic is simple. Upon impact, a shaped charge forms a directed stream of metal that burns through the armor from the inside and kills the crew. If, at the moment of contact, a small explosive charge detonates on the tank's surface, the counter-explosion destroys this stream before it reaches the main armor. Explosion against explosion. Counterfire. The first prototypes were made in the 1960s. However, insufficient theoretical analysis during one of the tests caused all the prototype elements to explode simultaneously. Not just damage, but a total detonation of everything on the test site. The program was shut down. The official reason was that Soviet tanks were already sufficiently protected. The unofficial reason was that no one wanted to explain to the higher-ups why something exploded that shouldn't have. Similar work was conducted by West German researcher Manfred Held between 1967 and 1969, together with the Israeli army. The Israelis got interested and funded the development. In 1982, in Lebanon, Israeli M60 and Centurion tanks entered the battlefield with blazer packages, blocks of explosives on the hull and turret. Syrian Malyutka anti-tank missiles, the very ones that burned Israeli tanks by the hundreds in 1973, were destroyed by the counter-explosion upon hitting the blazer packages and failed to penetrate the main armor. Militaries around the world immediately demanded the same thing. The Soviet Union adopted reactive armor in 1983, 34 years after it was invented in the Moscow Institute of Steel, a year after the Israelis proved the idea worked. Today, reactive armor is used on tanks in more than 50 armies worldwide. Every second main battle tank on the planet carries it in one form or another. The idea was born in Moscow in 1949. It was used in Lebanon in 1982. The difference is 33 years and one failed explosion, after which they said, shut it down. Next up is the Ekranoplan. The Soviet Union built a flying ship that didn't fit into any classification, and that is exactly why nobody needed it. We have already talked about the Caspian Monster and the Loon Ekranoplan in the episode about secret Soviet projects. But here is a different angle. An Ekranoplan is neither a plane nor a ship. It flies a few meters above the water's surface using an air cushion created by its own wing in the ground effect. At this altitude, it is invisible to ship radars, which look above the horizon. Its speed is 400 to 500 kilometers per hour. Its payload capacity is comparable to a heavy military transport aircraft. And yet, it requires no airfield, only open water. Designer Rostislav Alexeyev started working on it in the 1960s. The KM, or prototype ship, was over 100 meters long and weighed more than 500 tons. Western intelligence spotted it on satellite imagery and dubbed it the Caspian Monster because they had no idea what it actually was. In 1987, the combat-ready Loon entered service, equipped with 6 launchers for Musket anti-ship missiles, a missile cruiser with the speed of a fighter jet. Then the Soviet Union collapsed and the program was shut down, but the idea survived. Today, China is developing its own Ekranoplans, the AG-600M and the Wing ship, for use in the South China Sea. The goal is the same one Alexeyev envisioned: the rapid deployment of troops and equipment between islands that are too far for ships and too close for planes. This machine was ahead of its time because the world didn't know how to classify it. Not a ship, so not the Navy. Not a plane, so not the Air Force. Military bureaucracies don't know how to fund something that doesn't fit into existing categories. Third, let us look at the laser tank, the 1K-17 Szhatiye. The Soviet Union put a laser on a tank in 1992, and nobody knew about it for 20 years. The idea of directed energy weapons emerged in the Soviet Union back in the 1960s. The first Soviet laser systems, Terra 3 and Omega, appeared in the 1970s as stationary ground installations. But engineers thought further. If a laser can be placed on a stationary platform, why not a moving one? From the 1970s until the collapse of the Soviet Union, a secret project worked on creating a vehicle with directed energy laser weapons that could be used against the West if the Cold War turned hot. The project was so highly classified that enemy intelligence only learned about it through defectors. The result was the 1K-17 Szhatiye, built on the chassis of the 2S-19 MSTA-S self-propelled howitzer. Instead of a barrel, it carried a 12-channel laser emitter. The system did not work as a weapon that killed with a direct hit, but rather as a blinding device. The laser beam burned out the enemy's optics, tank sights, missile homing heads, and reconnaissance aircraft sensors. The first prototype of Szhatiye was assembled in December 1990 and underwent testing until 1992. The tests showed encouraging results. However, despite the success, full-scale mass production never followed. The Soviet Union collapsed, and Szhatiye was shut down along with the country. Today, laser weapons are one of the main arms races. The American LAWS system on Navy ships, the British Dragonfire, the Israeli Iron Beam, the German HEL. All of them do exactly what Soviet engineers were thinking about back in the 1970s, destroying enemy optics and missiles with a directed laser beam. The only surviving prototype of the 1K-17 stands in a military museum in Kubinka. Anyone can take a picture of it. It's just that few people know they are looking at the ancestor of the systems that protect ships and shoot down drones today. Write in the comments, which of these three inventions have you heard of before, and which one seems the most underrated to you? The fourth invention is the tank autoloader. The Soviet Union removed the human from the turret in the 1960s and got the best tank of the decade. The West did the exact same thing 40 years later. When the T-64 rolled out for testing in 1963, Western intelligence didn't immediately understand what they were looking at. The tank weighed 38 tons, carried a 125mm smoothbore gun, and had a crew of 3 people instead of 4, like most Western counterparts. The fourth crew member, the loader, was gone. He was replaced by an autoloader, a mechanical carousel at the base of the turret that fed shells automatically. The rate of fire was up to 8 rounds per minute. A human loading manually could achieve roughly the same, but they got tired. The mechanism never got tired. The turret became smaller, the silhouette lower, and the probability of the tank being hit decreased. Western armies studied the idea and rejected it. The main argument was that the mechanism was unreliable and would break. If a human loader fell ill, he could be replaced by another soldier, but you couldn't replace a mechanism that way. There was also a second argument, a quiet one never officially recorded. A human loader in the fighting compartment meant another pair of hands in case of a fire, a wounded commander, or an emergency. A mechanism doesn't have hands. The Soviet Union didn't back down. The T-64, T-72, T-80, and T-90 all feature an autoloader, all with a crew of 3. In the 2010s, France adopted the Leclerc with an autoloader. The Japanese adopted the Type 90, and the South Koreans developed the K2 Black Panther. The Israeli Merkava 4 is considering this option. The Russian Armata, with its unmanned turret and fully automated fighting compartment, is the logical continuation of an idea that turned 60 years old in 2023. The Soviet Union removed the loader from the turret because the logic was obvious. Why keep a human there if a mechanism can handle the task? The West spent 40 years agreeing with that. Fifth is the perimeter system. The Soviet Union built a machine that could start a nuclear war without human intervention, and it still works today. We talked about perimeter in the episode on nuclear incidents, but that was in the context of fear. Here, it is about technology. Perimeter was put into service in 1985. Its official name is the Guaranteed Penetration Retaliatory Strike System. In the West, it is known as the Dead Hand. The logic was clear. If a first strike by the enemy destroys the entire Soviet leadership simultaneously, the missiles must still launch. Otherwise, the enemy might be tempted to launch a decapitating strike, knowing there would be no retaliation. Deterrence only works if a retaliatory strike is guaranteed under any scenario. The solution was a system that, under specific conditions, such as detecting a nuclear explosion, a loss of communication with leadership, and the absence of a cancellation signal, independently launches command missiles. These missiles carry no warheads. They fly over the country's territory and transmit a launch signal to all silos and submarines that are still operational. No human is needed. The system decides on its own. In 1985, this was science fiction made of real iron. Today, it is called autonomous decision-making systems or artificial intelligence in the weapon control loop. This is exactly what military experts around the world are debating, whether an algorithm can be trusted to make a strike decision. The Soviet Union answered this question back in 1985. The answer was yes, you can. Under certain conditions, you must. Perimeter still operates today. Russia has not officially confirmed the details, but they haven't denied them either. The sixth invention is the laser microphone. The KGB invented remote eavesdropping in 1947 and kept it a secret for 20 years. In 1947, in Moscow, Lev Terman, the inventor of the theremin, the first electronic musical instrument, was working for Soviet intelligence, not voluntarily. He was arrested in 1938, went through the labor camps, and was now working in a sharashka, a closed design bureau for imprisoned scientists. A narrow laser beam is directed at a window pane in a room where a conversation is taking place. The sound of the voices causes micro-vibrations in the glass. The beam reflects off the glass and returns with these vibrations recorded inside it. A receiving device then decodes the vibrations back into sound. No bug inside the room, no physical break-in. Just a beam of light from the outside, and the entire conversation inside can be heard. The KGB used this device to bug the French, British, and American embassies in Moscow. In 1952, British MI5 intelligence discovered a bug in their Moscow embassy. But it wasn't a bug in the conventional sense. It was a passive resonator with no power source. It was electronics that didn't emit anything on their own, and therefore couldn't be detected by standard sweeping equipment. It took the British several years to understand how it worked. Today, laser microphones are a standard tool for intelligence services worldwide. Police special forces use them during hostage situations to hear what is happening behind closed doors, and corporate espionage uses them to listen into meeting rooms from outside the building. Terman invented this in 1947 under the threat of being sent back to the labor camps if there was no result. His name was not mentioned in open sources until the 1990s. 6 inventions. 6 ideas that the world accepted, but not from the Soviet Union. Reactive armor was invented in Moscow, but applied in Jerusalem. The Ekranoplan was built on the Caspian Sea, but is being copied in Shanghai. The laser tank was tested near Moscow, but similar projects are funded by the Pentagon. The autoloader was put on the T-64, and today it is adopted on the Leclerc and K2. Perimeter was launched in 1985, and today people argue about artificial intelligence in the strike loop. The laser microphone was used by the KGB in 1947, and today it is sold in catalogs for police forces. Every time, it is the same story. The idea was right, but the timing was wrong, or the system was wrong, or a single failed explosion during a test shut down a program for 30 years. The Soviet Union lost the Cold War, but some of its ideas won time. They just did so under different names and under different flags. Write in the comments which of these 6 inventions surprised you the most. And subscribe, there are plenty more stories ahead about how the right ideas appeared at the wrong time and in the wrong place.